Hey, Enoch again. Today I'll be taking you through a very quick tutorial on how to build a chatbot for a dental clinic. So this is comprehensive. You'll be seeing how to set it up in WordPress, how to build all the flows, the nodes, the variables, and then how to integrate it to WhatsApp and Google Calendar as well, so that users can book appointments directly to the calendar. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So you can see we're building a chatbot for a dental clinic. Like I said, we start off with an intro and greeting. That's where the whole introduction process between the user and the bot will begin. Then we will move on to a decision node in the bot, where the bot will decide what the user's intent is, whether they've made a greeting only, at which point it would greet them back and then ask them again for their intent, or if they want to book an appointment, if they want to check on their appointment, if they want to ask questions, etc. Perfect. So here we are in the WordPress studio. First things first, I'd mentioned that this bot will be interacting over WhatsApp and it will be connected to the Google Calendar, to which it will book events. So you need to head over to the Explore Hub section over here and go ahead and download WhatsApp, which I've just done. And so you'll see that that's installed. Just search up the integration, it should come up, and then go ahead and download Google Calendar as well. So if you search up Google Calendar should come up, and then you just go ahead and install that to your bot as well. Once that's done, you should have Google Calendar and WhatsApp as integrations in your bot. So go ahead and connect both of them to your Google Calendar account and WhatsApp business account. I'm not going to explain how to do the Google Calendar one because it's a bit extensive, but I will attach a document below that you can check out to help take you through it. Once that's done, you can go ahead and test it out, perhaps by trying to book a simple event to your calendar, which I'll show you in a short while. So next step, we want to integrate it to WhatsApp. So you go ahead to the WhatsApp integration, just click configuration, and you'll go with a simpler configure using auth and authorize WhatsApp. So before you do this, you want to make sure that you are logged into business.facebook.com and you have an active WhatsApp account. It doesn't have to be connected to a business WhatsApp account. It just has to be a WhatsApp account on the Meta Business Suite. So you continue and then go ahead and hit get started and then fill in all this business information. It should already pre-fill for you if you've set everything up correctly. So the business portfolio, and then you move on to the actual account. And I've already created a WhatsApp business account over here, but if you haven't, just go ahead and create one right now. And then you also want to have a WhatsApp business profile, which also, if you haven't created one, you can go ahead and create it immediately, but I've already done that. And that's the profile is what's actually connected to a phone number. So you want to have a free phone number as well that you can use to connect it to WhatsApp. Moving on from there, just a few steps left, and then you hit done, and from there we should be able to move on. Once you're on a screen like this that says your authentication is completed, and you'll see that WhatsApp has been authorized. So now we can begin building the bot. However, before we do that, you can go ahead and send a test message just to check that it actually works. So I will go ahead and do that right now. We'll just say, hello, I work. Before you head over to WhatsApp though, make sure that you hit the publish button, which will be in this top right corner, just to make sure that your bot is actually published. Otherwise, when you go over to WhatsApp and you send a message, you will get no response. So here I am in WhatsApp. I'll go ahead and check that the bot is online, and it's double ticked it, meaning it is online, and hello, I work. Perfect. Next up, you also want to go ahead and test the Google Calendar integration. How you do this, just input a create event card. If you click over here, you'll see that there's a lot of Google Calendar cards. So there's create event and there's event create. Create event is the one that works for me, so you can go ahead and add that. And then when you click on it, you have to just type in a quick summary, a quick description, and then you'll realize that it asks you for a start time and end time. These times are in RFC format, I believe, RFC 3339. Yeah, correct. And you can thus input them in there. But you have to remember that these times are in UTC. So when this card sends the actual times to your calendar will adjust the time accordingly. So you can see, for example, I'm 3 hours ahead of UTC. So if I go ahead and run this and I say hi, if I come over to the calendar, you'll see that it has booked it for 1 p.m. and yet in the studio I had set it for 10 a.m. So 1 p.m. is 3 hours ahead of that, and that's because I'm 3 hours ahead of UTC. So just take that into consideration, and we'll make sure we build accordingly as well. Next up, before we start building anything, we'll start by creating the workflows that we'll use. So first of all, we'll have what will be a general conversation workflow. So we'll just call this gen convo. And then we'll have a second workflow for creating events. So create event. And then we'll have a third workflow for checking events. And then we'll add in one more called the query flow. And it's in this flow that the user will be able to ask questions, and their questions will be answered using knowledge from the bot's knowledge base. Great. So if we go back into the main flow, we can start building. So down here, we can delete this and move straight into what will be the first node. So the first node, what will it do? It will check if the user is old or new and greet them accordingly. So over here, we'll just add an expression. And we will create a new variable called user status, which we will do later. But in here, we'll just put user.status is equal to old. So if the user status is equal to old, speech marks, then it will flow in this direction. If not, it will not flow in this direction. So over here, you would have the greeting to old users, and then down here, we would have the greeting to new users. Why do we do this? We do this because we need to treat them differently. For new users, we need to make an introduction. So we'd have a text card over here, and we basically say, hi, welcome to Aloe Clinic. And then we'll go ahead and tell the user that the system is an AI chatbot. So my name is Lenny. And then for the one up here, I'll just have a simple message that says, hey. That's all, because this will be for old users, this will be for new users. And then at the bottom of this, you want to add one more card that basically changes the user status after their first interaction. So you'll have user.status. Status is equal to old. And so what this will do is after the user being a new user, after their first interaction with the chatbot, then it would make them an old user so that they continue to flow up from here. They're no longer a new user at this point. And don't forget to create the user.status variable. Just head over here, type in status, and then change the scope to user and hit create. I already created it, so you can see that the name is already in use. And then from there on, you can go ahead and create the next node, which will be transition. So you can come over here and then type in gen convo, because that is the flow we're transitioning to. That's where the general conversation will happen. From here, you can now go ahead and give it the first interaction. So if you open up the emulator, you can go ahead and type hi, and you'll see that it gives you that introduction on the first time. But if you type hi again, start a new conversation, it now just says hey to you, and a third time, the same thing. So from now on, you're an old user. Perfect. So jump back into the studio and look at the gen convo, open up the gen convo flow, and then from here we will add a decision based on the user's intent. So there's multiple ways to do this, but my favorite way to do it is with an AI task, because I feel like it has the most control. So you can see I've already set up the instructions in the AI task. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to analyze the user's most recent message stored in the event.preview variable, which you want to input into the AI task input, and then it will classify that message into one of the categories. And these are the categories: number 1, the user's asking a question; number 2, they want to book an appointment; number 3, they're checking an existing appointment; and number 4, the user sent just a greeting and nothing else to the bot. And it will store the appropriate number of that category in a result variable that has to be a number. So you create a variable that is a number. So for example, this one is called C-type, and then you would just have that as a number, and it would basically output the appropriate number in there. And then we will then use that number and a few expressions cards to understand what the user wants, to understand the user's intent. So if we go ahead and type expression and input that over here, we can remove the AI and then say workflow dot C-type is equal to 1. So if it's equal to 1, it will transition in this direction over here. And then if we just copy this, we can paste that down here and just change this to 2, and then do the same thing over here. Change this to 3 and change the one down here to 4. Perfect. So now if it is a question, if the user had asked a question, they will flow up here. We can change this to question just for some clarity. If they had asked to book an appointment, so book, they will transition into here. If they had asked to check an appointment, we will change this to check. They will transition over here. And if they had just sent a greeting alone, we would transition them down here. So just greeting. Perfect. And we can go ahead and give this a test over here. So if we say hi, for example, you can see that it has taken us transition to get convo flow greeting. So it has transitioned down here, as you can see. But if I ask a question, so if I say, what time are you at? You can see that it has taken us up here to question. And if I say, I want to book appointment, wow, it will take us to the book section over here. As you can see, it's highlighted. And then the final one, I want to check appointment, and then it should take us to the check over here. Perfect. Now, if the user sent only a greeting, what you want to do is just prompt them to actually make a request that the bot can help them with. So for example, over here, we'll just have a simple text node, and we'll say, how may I help you? And we'll just flow that all the way back in here. But before we do that, we'll add a wait for user input card. Otherwise, you will create an infinite loop. Basically, what will happen is it will come down here, say how may I help you, and then just loop back and keep doing that unless you wait for the user's input. So now if we try that again, if I say hi, you can see it takes us down here and it says how may I help you, at which point I can now say, for example, I want to book an appointment, and then it will transition me to the appropriate place over here. Now we'll move over to this top part, the question, and what we want to do that at this point is just transition to the query flow once it detects that the user is asking a question. So we'll go ahead and just type query, input that over here, and once that's done, it should circle back into the decision making flow. So we'll just put that up here as well. So now, as you can see, we're in the query flow. You want to head over there, and then we're actually going to build the system that will produce a response to the user's query. There's many ways to do this, but I'll be doing a very simple way in this tutorial. However, down below, I'll put a link to one of my other videos where I'll show you a more complex but more reliable way to build query flows. So over here, I'll just go ahead and add a query card, if I can find it, query knowledge base, and over there I will input the event.preview variable. And you have to make sure that you click this little icon over here to turn it to a variable, to allow you to input a variable, and then I'll store this in the variable kbants, which is uncreated. So first of all, you have to go over there, create a variable called kbants, and then come over here and just store it there. So the knowledge base answer is what that stands for, and then out here we will just output the knowledge base answer. So you add a text card, and in here you will just put at workflow.kbants, simple, and then from there on you can just exit. Now to go ahead and test this, just add a bit of knowledge to your bot, and I'll go ahead and do that right now. So to add knowledge to your bot, head over to this book icon on the far left of your screen, click it, and then it will take you to a page such as this one, where you will be able to see the knowledge bases that you currently have. If you don't have any, it will be empty, and so you'll have the opportunity to add one. So I've created one, rich text, and then I've basically just input a bunch of fictitious information. However, you can also upload documents. You can also link your bot directly to a site so that it basically gets its knowledge from a site that you enter, and that allows it to basically send crawlers to your website and use those crawlers to answer questions depending on what the user asks it. So if you go ahead and head over back to the workflow and test it out. So I'm back in here, if I go ahead and ask a question such as, where is the clinic located, you'll see that it has transitioned to the query node over here, and the clinic is located at 123 Tooth Avenue, Smile City, SC, etc. However, you can see that there's a loop, so we do need to fix that issue. And you can do that just by coming back over into the query flow and adding a wait for user input card over here. Perfect. And if you repeat this exact thing, you'll see if we say, are you located, it's now able to answer the question. And then from there on, it waits for the user input instead of entering a continuous loop. And then from there, we can ask another question such as, do you do extractions? And once again, you can see that it has answered, yes, we do extractions of wisdom teeth and other teeth as well. And just like that, we are done with this query section of the bot. Come over to this booking card over here, the book card in the general conversation flow, and you just want to add a card that will send it to create event, because create event is where we will book events from. So scroll down all the way until you have access to all of your workflows, and then or you can just search up create event, the name of the workflow, and input that there as a card, meaning when the user reaches this stage, they will automatically be transported into the create event workflow. And we can actually do that for the check event workflow right now as well. Checking events, and we'll put that over here. Perfect. Great. So your next step is to come back into the create event workflow, and what you want to do is set up an autonomous node. So just right click anywhere on the studio interface and hit autonomous node, and a little purple node should come up with the tag autonomous. So just connect this up, and then I'll give you the instructions to put into it right now. So you'll find the instructions in a document pasted down below in the video description. Just open the document and copy paste the instructions in here, and then I'll show you how to change them up accordingly to suit your use case. So if you come into the resources document, you should see it, make a dialogue-based chatbot for dentists in under 30 minutes. The resources over here, and then you'll see the first thing at the top, create event AN. AN stands for autonomous node instructions. So this is what you're to copy at this stage. So just Control C all of this, and then jump back into the studio, click on the autonomous node in the create that you just created, and in this instructions field, just Control V everything, and you'll see it will all show up in here. So once that's done, what you'll do is you'll add 4 more cards. So the first card is list events. This gives this autonomous node the ability to read your calendar. And then the next one is create event, which gives it the ability to create events to your calendar. The third one is search knowledge. This will give this autonomous node the ability to answer user questions. So in the case that a user asks a question while they're inside this node, it will be able to answer them using information from your knowledge base. And then lastly, you want to add a transition card. So basically what it does is it transitions out of here, and in here you just want to type booked. The way this works is that this card is called booked, and it's referenced in the instructions. So at the very bottom, you see once an event is booked, transition immediately to the booked card below, and then the card is referenced, so the users would then transition out of that and would go back to the original workflow in which they came from, which is the Gen Convo workflow. So the next thing you want to do is come over here into the settings and change the autonomous language model LLM to GPT-5 mini. This is the best one I've found. It's cost effective and it's quite powerful as well. So the next thing you can do is open up the emulator and test it out. So just say hi, and then ask to book an appointment. Enter the date and time, wait for it to check for your appointment, and then just like that, it will tell you if it's available and ask for the name. So the name that I want to book under is Enoch Jones. And you can see it will then put out all the data and then ask for confirmation. So date, time, and the name, and you can just hit yes to confirm. And then you'll see a short message that says it's confirmed and it has booked the appointment, and then the conversation ends. If you come into your calendar, you should see a new appointment at the time you selected. So for me, that was 10 a.m. and I had booked another one prior to this. Now, for some of you, you might get appointments being booked at the wrong time, and this is the reason why. You need to come into the instructions for the autonomous node and consider your time zone. So the bot communicates with your calendar in the UTC time zone. However, you might be behind or in front of that time zone. So if you're in front of that time zone, you need to edit this section of the instructions to tell it to subtract the number of hours that you're ahead of UTC by, which you can Google. So for example, I'm ahead of UTC by 3 hours, and so it needs to subtract 3. If you're behind by 3 hours, you would tell it to add 3 hours or whatever other amount it is. And then you should also edit this quick example over here, just so that it understands what it should do. So for example, if you told it to subtract, give it an example of subtracting in the same format that I did over here. Then you also want to come down to the bottom of the instructions and also change this second last sentence over here that says, make sure the times are all shifted X hours behind or in front based on what the user selected. And once that's done, you should have a system that actually books events at the correct time into your calendar. So next, you want to come back into the Gen Convo flow, and we just want to create the transition after a user has booked an event. So what we will do is we will simply add a new node over here, and this transition will be the same for if the user has booked an event or if they have finished checking for an event. So we can connect these both to here. You don't have to connect both the dots, but if you want, you can go ahead and do that. And then over here, what we will do is we will add a wait for user input card. And then after adding that wait for user input, we will make it circle all the way back to the beginning of this. So we will click on the exit point from here and drag that all the way back to the beginning. So what this will do is it now creates a full loop so that after users have created an event, it waits for their next input and then either answers their question, helps them book another event by coming back through here, or helps them check for events again. So to finish up, we'll then move to the checking events section. So once again, you want to come back into the resources document and scroll down to the second page where you will find the check event AN instructions after the create event instructions. So once again, we'll copy all of this and then we'll come back to the checking events workflow, create a new autonomous node and paste in these instructions. Once again, you may need to adjust the instructions of the autonomous node here. So that would be in these two paragraphs. So you'd have to change it using the exact same framework depending on your time zone that I have mentioned when we were creating the create event autonomous node. And then secondly, there will also be the second last paragraph down here. You may or may not need to change this 3-hour discrepancy just to make things clear. So the next step is just to connect things up over here and then add 3 cards. The first card will be list events. This will just give your autonomous node the ability to read from your calendar. The next card will be search knowledge base, once again to answer questions in case any come up. And then the third one will be another transition card, and we will call this one completed. And then we can connect this to the exit point. And that's because if we come down here, you can see that once again in the last paragraph, it talks about transitioning. It gives the AN instructions to transition to a completed card, which you must add in below. So now if you open up the emulator, you can test it out using the exact same name that we created a booking with when we were testing the create event workflow. So just say hi and request to book an appointment, and you should see it transition to the correct place over here. Enter the name that we used. It should be able to read your calendar and then output the event under that name. So you can see Enoch Jones on the 19th of August 2025 from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the clinic, and you can change that depending on your clinic's location. All of that is in the instructions of the AN. If we come into the calendar, we can confirm that 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Enoch Jones on the 19th. And then you'll notice that it waits for the user input. So if we say now, where is the clinic, you can see that now it has circled back into through Gen Convo, it has now circled back, and instead it has gone up here into the question workflow which we built earlier, and has provided the correct details for that as well. So just like that, we're done. All you have to do is come up here, hit publish to publish your bot, wait for it to finish, and then it should be accessible through WhatsApp because we integrated it earlier, but it will provide you with a link as well once it's done publishing, and you can just share this link that people can use to interact with it over the web. So just like that, we're done, and you can go ahead and interact with your new system over WhatsApp, which we connected, and web chat as well via the link that should pop up after you've published it. If you have any inquiries, or if you'd like me to build something like this or better for your business, send an email to info@ivyflowdma.com. The email's in the description, and I'll catch you in the next one.